This is Alan Troyer with Cat Forms, and in this video we are going to continue working in Remark. The previous video we entered the school name ID, the person name ID, the test date, and the curriculum, and now we're going to review exceptions, which means looking for errors. And we could just, here we had this entire block of cells highlighted to paste in the CLE curriculum, and if we hit review right now, all it's going to do is check that particular block of cells. And so if we hit enter, it says there are no more exceptions, and it's done. So we have to make sure that we only click on one cell, and then it will review the entire grid, because obviously we do have something going on here. We've got a green cell with an X, and here we have yellow ones with Z's. Yellow means that it was empty, and the Z corresponds with that. I think Z as in someone sleeping. And for flags, that's fine, because most of the time flags are left empty. But here we have an X, and this was not recognized. It thinks that there's more than one marked, and 12th grade is clearly marked, and so that is a problem there. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on review here, and notice over here we have check marks for the different types of exceptions. This is multiple responses, blank responses. We could mark that, but the program is pretty good at picking up on those, and so we save time if we don't mark that. And then recognition errors, and then there's others as well. And as long as this box is red, we can hit enter to go through whatever exceptions that are found. Okay, now we have our grade here, which should be 12th grade. We'll go ahead and correct that, and then we'll hit enter. And it says there are no more exceptions after this cell within the current search area, which is the entire grid. Would you like to save the changes made during the review process? Yes, we want to save changes. And let's go to level 4, and again we've got a block of cells highlighted. Let's just click on an individual one anywhere, doesn't really matter, and hit review, hit enter. And our first flag has 2 marks, so there are multiple marks here. The one is X'd out, but the program doesn't know that. Number 3 should be the selection, which in this case is a student who has problems during testing, and so they will be eliminated from the class summaries. And we'll hit enter to move on. Here's another one, and you notice that the shaded area does not cover the bubbles well, so we'll change that to an M and hit enter. And okay, this is done. We'll save changes, and then let's go to level 3. Here we have a whole bunch of problems, and sometimes when you see a whole column like that, it's best to check everything, whether or not it's marked as an error. So let's just look at these manually. Our block for gender is way off. Looks like our scan is somewhat faulty. That one should be an F. The one below it should be an M. Oops. The one below that should be an F. This one here, that should actually be an F. That's why if you see a whole column like that, check the ones even if they don't register errors. This one shows like it should be empty, but it's there. It's an F. An M. And another M. And actually, doing the gender like that is a little redundant. If there is an M or an F, it will update the student to being either male or female. If it's something else, such as an X, it will actually ignore it. But it just looks a lot cleaner if this is taken care of. Now let's go ahead and click our review button and make sure we catch everything else. Okay, there's that grade, and that should be 4th grade, so we'll go ahead and change that to 4th grade. Hit enter again, and it looks like that's done. Now, it looks like we're done with exceptions, but there is one more thing we should check, and that is simply scroll through the whole list sideways here. Here's a yellow, and that is an empty row. Here's another yellow, and that's also an empty row. Let's keep going. Assume the other yellows are probably read correctly. And we'll go clear to the second page to the punctuation 2 section. In level 3, that is 12 problems, and that would be this particular block of cells right here. 12 problems times 8 students. Now, there's often 2 responses. The top one here, we have a comma missing, and it's beside word number 2, and so we should have an A2, and that is correct. For the second problem, we have none marked, and so that's simply an F by itself. So what we're looking for is to make sure that letters are followed by numbers except for F. If we see a single letter that's not an F, then it should be looked at to make sure it was read correctly. Okay, that looks good there. We'll just quickly slide over here. We got a few empties, but other than that, that looks okay. Let's look at level 4 and scroll over and do the same thing there. Here we have some more empty rows. Let's just double check that. Yeah, there's a bunch of empties there, and there also. Punctuation 2 for level 4 is bigger. There are 32 problems, and looking through here, here's a B that's by itself, and that is correct because they did not fill in a bubble for one of the numbers. Here are some empties, and sure enough, those are empty. And the rest of these look like they're all pretty much filled out correctly. So let's look at level 5 yet. Same thing. Oh, by the way, notice you're on row number 2. Make sure you scroll up to see the entire grid. Okay. Oop. Level 5. Here we have 40 punctuation problems. There's an A by itself, and sure enough, that is empty on the bottom. And here's punctuation 2, number 40 at the end, and those all look pretty good there. So I believe we're done looking at exceptions. Again, make sure these columns are all filled out correctly. Sheet ID should read 5100 QR for level 5. And 4100 and so on. And form and grade definitely needs to be there. Flags are optional. So I think we can safely close this. And when we close it, it saves the levels 3, 4, and 5. And if we go back into our dashboard, we may have to refresh here. Now that looks good. Let's go to the processing tables. Okay, there's an error here from earlier, but level 3, there's a level 3 students that we just worked on, level 4, and level 5. And sometimes there are errors like forgotten test dates or that type of thing, and we can check it in here. Then to finish our scoring process, we hit process scored tests, and processing is complete. Now, if we refresh this, we'll notice some change. Here we have 2 first graders. We've not done anything with them yet, but notice here recent test is 421 of 20, and so on down the string here. So that is correct, and therefore we can go on. And that is the end of this video.